If you were going to panic, now's the time.
Bakers, your time is up.
Nice wobble.
Delicious.
Let the baking season commence. The Great British Bake Off starts Tuesday at 8 on Channel 4.
Morning. During the financial crisis, then Chair Ben Bernanke used speeches here to preview QE2 and 3. Many on Global Wall Street think Powell will seize the same opportunity. In Jackson Hole, Michael McKee, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And coming up on Bloomberg later today, our interview with Kansas City Fed Reserve President Esther George at the annual Jackson Hole Economic Policy Symposium in Wyoming. One not to be missed. You can catch that interview at 12:30 this afternoon, London time. We also look ahead to getting accounts of the ECB meeting today as well.
And as we were mentioning, the Fed minutes did cite uncertainty over tariffs as one of the main reasons for the rate cut. Now, policymakers noted the trade war would remain, quote, a persistent headwind for the outlook. Speaking to reporters outside the White House, President Trump said he's winning the trade war.
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. So I'm taking on China. I'm taking on China on trade.
Well, meanwhile, a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry is calling on Washington to meet China halfway and end the tariff war.
And turning to Germany, in Brexit news this morning, in fact, rather than Germany, you see Merkel in the slug and you think we're talking about Germany. In Brexit news this morning, Angela Merkel has set Boris Johnson a challenge: solve the Irish border backstop conundrum within 30 days. Speaking alongside Johnson in Berlin, the Chancellor, heard here through a translator, says she'd like to make a deal work.
The backstop has always been a fallback position if one is able to solve this conundrum. If one finds this solution, we said we will probably find it in the next 2 years to come, but we can also maybe find it in the next 30 days to come.
Johnson embraced the challenge, but a senior French official sounds sceptical about the UK's chances, saying a no-deal Brexit is now the most likely scenario. Johnson meets with French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris today.
Turning to Hong Kong, stocks there are poised for their worst quarter since 2015. And as Bloomberg's Yvonne Mann reports, corporate earnings are unlikely to save them.
Analysts are now forecasting that operating income for companies listed on the Hang Seng will slump an average 19% this year. That would be the biggest drop since the global financial crisis, as the companies struggle with the U.S.-China trade war, a weak yuan, and now the impact of months of protests. The Hang Seng Index is down about 13% since its April high, making it one of the worst returns in the world. And Morgan Stanley and Credit Suisse are among those turning even more bearish. In Hong Kong, I'm Yvonne Mann, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
In corporate news, Deutsche Bank is tightening the way it fills vacancies. Division heads now have to ask for approval from the chief executive, deputy CEO or CFO to fill any open positions. The memo seen by Bloomberg says only critical roles should be submitted. It comes as the lender is undergoing its biggest restructuring in living memory, with plans to cut 18,000 jobs.
Right, let's get the latest in global news. Here's Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans. Leanne, good morning.
Good morning, Roger. HSBC has broken its silence on the protests roiling Hong Kong, calling for a peaceful resolution to differences in the city. Bloomberg's Karen Lee reports.
The London-based bank derives more than half of its pre-tax profit from the financial hub and is the first global bank to publicly address its crisis. It said the rule of law is indispensable for the former British colony, where local business and tycoons have also spoken out. In Hong Kong, Karen Lee, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
President Trump says he's cancelled a trip to Copenhagen because the Danish Prime Minister made a nasty remark. Mette Frederiksen says the president's apparent wish to buy Greenland was absurd and that she hoped it was indeed a joke. Trump said her comments were nasty and sarcastic and that no one should talk to the United States in that way under his administration. North Korea has said it won't talk under military threats, raising new doubts about US President Trump's effort to restart stalled nuclear negotiations. Bloomberg's Jae-hee Lee has the details.
It said South Korea bought deadly weapons like fighter jets from the U.S. and that they're going against agreements that were previously made between the leaders. The statement comes after Donald Trump's top envoy for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, said in Seoul that he was ready to engage with his North Korean counterparts as soon as they respond. In Seoul, Ji-Hae Lee, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And rap star Eminem's music producer is suing Spotify. 8 Mile Style alleges the service streamed the performer's songs billions of times without a license. The company says unpaid royalties could amount to $120 million. Spotify hasn't commented as of yet. Global News 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Jan Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Thanks, Leanne. With the morning sport, here's George Alderman.
England cricket captain Joe Root says he expects his team to go up another level in the third Ashes test at Headingley. They had to settle for a draw in the second match at Lord's, despite going close to winning. Root's side starts in Leeds this morning, looking to make it 1-1 in the series.
I don't think anyone's even thought of losing this test match. Today we need to go out there and play in the same manner that we did at Lord's and jump on the confidence and make sure that we back that performance up.
Wolves start their final bid for a place in the Europa League group stages tonight. They're in Italy for the first leg of their playoff tie with Torino. After dropping out of Champions League qualification, Celtic host Swedish club AIK. Rangers are away to Legia Warsaw, while Linfield take on FK Karabag in Belfast. Mako Vunipolas returns to the England Rugby Union team is expected to be confirmed this lunchtime. The prop hasn't played since having surgery on a hamstring injury in May, but should be named in the side for Saturday's World Cup warm-up with Ireland.
Thanks very much indeed, George. And looking across the opening now in Europe, we're 13 minutes in, and a lot of red across the board at the moment, Naira. Very interesting.
Yeah, it is a risk-off day, and we're seeing the 10-year Treasury yield drop as well after backing up yesterday, along with the 2-year yield after those Fed minutes. We certainly saw some reaction to that. US stocks paired their gains as well, futures flat.
All money managers might seem the same. But while some give their clients cookie-cutter portfolios, Fisher Investments tailors portfolios to your goals and needs. Some only call when they have something to sell. Fisher calls regularly, so you stay informed. And while some advisors are happy to earn commissions whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. In other words, we're on your side. Maybe that's why most of our clients come from other money managers. So if you're in or nearing retirement, talk with us and find out why investors are switching to and staying with Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments. Clearly better money management. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss. Visit us at FisherInvestments.com to find out what we can do for you.
How will AI change your industry? In just 20 days, an AI powered by technology from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise learned how to win at poker, beating the world's best players at the world's hardest game. Imagine what that technology can do for your business. When everything computes, what's next is extraordinary. Learn more at hpe.com.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Emily Chang.
Joining us to discuss, Chetan Sharma, CEO of Chetan Sharma Consulting, who wrote a report on this topic. So, Chetan, first of all, can you describe to us in layman's terms what is edge computing?
Generally, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft have data centers around the world, and that's where all the applications and the content gets served from. So instead of the centralized cloud system, you have these resources available at the edge or very close to the consumer. And so this edge could be something like the same kind of resources available on a base station near a neighborhood, or it could be some other kind of mini data centers that people are starting to build. And so the idea is instead of a data center which is hundreds or thousands of miles away, it could be only a few miles away.
So who does this give an advantage to, and does it put Amazon, Microsoft, Google at a disadvantage with their cloud businesses?
I think it does put them at a certain disadvantage because the centralized clouds business is pretty straightforward in the sense that you build the data centers and you make it available for the developers. For the edge business, you really need to partner with the players who have real estate assets at the edge, and generally these are the mobile operators or the tower companies or the metro data center providers.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg's European headquarters in London, I'm Sandra Kilhoff. Time for Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Now over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Michael Reid.
Good morning, Sandra. Asian stocks drifted low with no clear catalyst overnight. We've seen much the same in Europe. Euro Stoxx 50 off around 0.1%, DAX off a similar amount, although off worse levels after the recent release of the French manufacturing and services PMI. Manufacturing above the 50 mark again at a 2-month high. Market noting private sector growth accelerated in August. Trade jitters do continue. The Chinese Commerce Ministry recently said that China will be forced to retaliate if the US tariffs go ahead. We did see a dip lower in equity futures and base metals on that news. Relatively choppy trade in the bond space, again dipping lower on the PMIs recently. Curves are bull flatter. G10 and emerging market currencies are mostly steady. WTI and Brent both off at session lows. Coming up today, we have manufacturing and services PMI still due from Germany, the Eurozone and the US. We get the US jobless claims and the leading index this afternoon. Focus will be on the ECB's minutes from the July meeting, released at 12:30 London. We do have Fed's George and Cash Carey both due to speak this afternoon. That's it from me. To hear live breaking news, type SQUA on your Bloomberg terminal. Sandra.
Thanks, Michael. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Garrins with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you. In Italy, President Sergio Mattarella is beginning high-stake talks to end the political crisis. He'll meet with main political leaders to try to create a viable governing coalition. Only Mattarella has the power to nominate a new leader. He may give two parties, the Democrats and Five Star, a few more days to enter into formal discussions. The Amazon rainforest in Brazil is burning at a record rate. That's according to data from the country's National Institute of Space Research. There was an 84% increase in fires there between 2018 and 2019. Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro says non-governmental organizations could be setting the fires to discredit him, but he's offered no evidence. And it's a nerve-wracking morning for hundreds and thousands of teenagers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland as GCSE results are indeed published. The impact of changes in England to make them even tougher is likely to be seen for the very first time. Global News 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Oh, thanks, Leanne. It's a big day for you, Roger.
Yes, even now my son is examining his GCSE results, and yes, I'm so old I did do O-levels, in case anyone was wondering. And of course,
do they get harder every year, do you think?
They do. Well, now you have to yeah. Basically, I think the standards have risen. I couldn't do the half of what he's done, put it that way.
Have you heard how he's done?
Dad. No, I'm in here. I'm in the studio. I'm on radio. No,
you haven't had a cheeky look at your text.
No. I'm a very dedicated presenter, so I couldn't possibly do that.
Well, we wait with bated breath, as do Brexit watchers. Boris Johnson is meeting the French president in Paris later as he tries to convince the EU to reopen Brexit negotiations. Overnight, Emmanuel Macron has downplayed hopes of solving the Irish backstop problem, while Chancellor Merkel has given the UK 30 days to find a solution. But the UK Prime Minister remains positive.
I think that if we approach this with sufficient patience and optimism, as I say, we can get this done. It's in the final furlong, generally, when the horses change places and the winning deal appears.
For more, let's cross over to UK government reporter Rob Hutton. Rob, great to have you with us. Does Boris Johnson have a point when he says that the EU does have a habit of coming to compromises last minute?
Well, it does. It does. And he's right that all of us, including him and his journalist days who've covered Brussels summits, are familiar with the rule that, for instance, it's not tomorrow until they say it is, so they can even stretch midnight deadlines into the next day. But all of those apply to as it were, internal European Union discussions, when the EU 28 are sat around a table agreeing stuff for themselves, among themselves. The crucial thing about the Brexit talks that has really blindsided Britain from the start is the extent to which Britain is being treated as a third country because it's leaving. And there is much less of a tradition of fixing it up at 30 minutes past midnight in talks with third countries than there is internally. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is actually that what is last minute? We're getting awfully close to sort of to 2 months away from a no-deal Brexit. Is this the last minute? I don't think many people would like this to go to, say, October the 30th, and then you find you get a deal, because if you're making your no-deal plans around, getting trucks moving across different borders and booking ferries and this kind of thing, then at that point you've already spent your money. So Angela Merkel's point, that sort of suggestion, which may have been a sarcastic joke, it's not entirely clear, that there's sort of 30 days now to try and sort something out. That might be last minute already, if you see what I mean.
Well, I was going to say, Rob, is this just gestural on both sides? So Boris Johnson's going around pretending he's got something new to say, and the leaders are pretending to think that there may be room for negotiation where actually there isn't.
It might be. So what you saw from Boris Johnson yesterday and indeed the day before is there has always been a belief among Conservative Brexiteers that the reason they don't like Theresa May's deal, the reason they think it's not very good, is because she didn't ask. Or possibly she didn't ask hard enough. And that has absolutely been articulated by Johnson this week. And his point is, I'm going to go and I'm going to ask properly and explain the advantages of this. And now we're going to see whether or not, in fact, that works. The Theresa May argument was, we explored lots of things and we didn't pursue things that were just obviously not going to work. And then you get into a debate about what that is.
Rob, briefly, where are we on the UK side of preventing a no-deal Brexit?
Well, I'm not sure that we're particularly anywhere. Boris Johnson is looking for a deal, but in terms of preventing a no-deal Brexit, there's very little noise about that. All the noise in the British government is about preparing for a no-deal Brexit. And their argument is, if you show you're ready, if you show you're serious, then you will see Europe come round. And again, that's an idea that we may see tested in the next 2 months.
Rob, thank you so much. Rob Hutton there, UK government reporter, talking about the latest moves on Brexit. And today, of course, Boris Johnson is in Paris, where, by the sound of it, he'll get a rather dustier answer from Emmanuel Macron. You're listening to Daybreak Europe. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks posted midweek gains helped along by the retail sector after Target and Lowe's posted strong quarterly results, but recent recession speculation has kept investors wary and markets volatile. Christina Hooper of Invesco tells Bloomberg some deterioration in consumer expectations could be a warning sign because it's not the result of chatter from economists.
It certainly has been helped by talks specifically about the new tariffs coming in on September 1st, which would largely impact consumers.
And Hooper says tariffs are creating economic policy uncertainty for businesses. The retail sector could be in focus again today. L Brands and Nordstrom posted better than expected second quarter numbers after the bell, and Gap, Dick's Sporting Goods, Ross Stores, and Stage Stores will open their books today. The weekly update on new claims for unemployment benefits is on the way, and the Conference Board releases its forward-looking index of leading economic indicators. Jeff Bellinger, Bloomberg Radio.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Today, fixed income demands more than a fixed approach. It means staying ahead of ever-changing markets, making the most of traditional strategies, but also looking beyond them. Not just finding opportunities for investors, but creating them. We didn't invent fixed income, but we reinvent it every day. PIMCO. All investments contain risk and may lose value. Investing in the bond market is subject to risks. Consult your investment professional prior to making an investment decision.
Asset management.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
Hemorrhoids. You talk to your GP, but you don't really get anywhere. Because the NHS has limited surgery for hemorrhoids, so you go on suffering in silence. Okay, maybe not so silent. It's time to speak to Xroid. They specialise in a new, fast, safe and effective procedure for hemorrhoids, with no downtime. And the procedure takes just 30 minutes or less. Don't be one of the 8 million people in the UK suffering in almost silence. Get back to what you love doing. Xroid. Be kind to your behind. For free advice on hemorrhoids, text KIND to 81156.
This is a plug. A plug for the future. Inviting you to join the forward-thinking riders, skaters, and drivers who choose electricity to get around. Charging their bikes, boards, and cars using power from EDF Energy, the UK's largest producer of low-carbon electricity. So, do you like the sound of the electric future? Come and join us. Generation Electric. Everyone's welcome. EDF Energy.
Live big and spend less on the brands you adore. And dine by the waterside. Who could want more? Lap up the savings as much as the view. With Ted Baker, Hackett, Nike and Coach too. Lock Fine and Five Guys make it a date. You can shop, meet and eat every weekday till late. So sit back, unwind, and let style lead the way. And give yourself a different day. At Gunwharf Quays. Waterfront outlet shopping.
Did you know Currys PC World do business? Saving your business up to 30% with mega deals. On computers and printers, electricals, large screen TVs, and even more. Top brands like HP, Microsoft, Epson, Sony. And if you find it cheaper from any major retailer, we'll match it. Get these deals before they're gone. Must end soon. Visit your nearest store or pcworldbusiness.co.uk/megadeals. T's and C's apply. Excludes Inc. and third-party sellers. Visit website for price promise details. Claim within 7 days.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB digital radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
8:30 a.m. in London, 9:30 if you're listening in Paris, Frankfurt or Brussels. Good morning, everyone. I'm Naira Chehich.
And I'm Roger Hearing, and you're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Some breaking PMI data coming through from Germany. We do have a beat here for the August number in terms of the manufacturing, also a slight beat on the services and the composite as well. And this after we had a beat on all three of those numbers for France earlier. So are we seeing a little bit of a bottom when it comes to European data? That might be a question to consider. Taking a look at European equities, we're coming off the lows a little bit from earlier, but we're still in the red on the Stock 600, down just 0.1% right now, though. In terms of industry groups, you're looking at more of them in the red than in the green. You've got personal household goods, real estate and tech underperforming. On regional equity benchmarks, again, you're actually seeing a little bit of a mixed picture now after most of them, if not all, were in the red earlier. The FTSE 100 down 0.4%, the CAC 40 down 0.2%, DAX is flat, IBEX and FTSE MIB in the green now. We did see green on the screen for US equities yesterday too. We paired some of the gains following the Fed minutes, but we still ended up 0.8%. Futures struggling for direction. S&P 500 E-minis, NASDAQ and Dow futures all pretty much flat. Dow futures edge up just a touch, up 0.1%. We certainly saw a reaction in the bond markets to the Fed minutes yesterday, which talked about mid-cycle adjustment, gave 3 reasons for the cut in July, which raised questions as to how much more they're going to cut. Of course, the market fully pricing in September and pricing in at least 2 more cuts by year end. The 10-year yield backed up along with the 2-year yield yesterday. The 2-year yield by more, though, so we've had 3 days of flattening on the 2s, 10s. We steepen a touch today. The 10-year yield down 1.5 basis points, 158 handle. The 2-year yield is down 1.5 basis points, 156. The 10-year Bund yield earlier was moving lower. We're now up a basis point, negative 66, and that did back up a little yesterday as well after what was quite a dismal 30-year auction. The 10-year BTP yield down 3 basis points, 130 is where we trade. Gilt yield unchanged. We're seeing some bid for the safe haven in FX markets. Dollar strength was the story yesterday. We're unchanged on the Bloomberg dollar index, but the yen is bid against the dollar, 106.46. And taking a look at commodities, the drop in oil yesterday came largely because of stockpile data. We recover a touch right now. WTI up 0.2%, 55.80. Brent at 60.37. Gold just below 1,500, and copper on the back foot on the LME. Roger.
Well, let's go on to some of today's top stories. Angela Merkel has set Boris Johnson a challenge: solve the Irish border backstop conundrum within 30 days. At their first meeting since Johnson became Prime Minister, both said they want to see the UK leave the EU with a divorce agreement. But the question is, will they find a solution in time? Bloomberg's Arne Delfs reports from Berlin.
In the year-long struggle over Brexit, German Chancellor Angela Merkel sees the possibility of reaching an agreement with the UK over the Irish border question within the next 30 days. Maybe we can find a solution in the next 30 days. Why not? Then we'd be much further along. Merkel said in Berlin Wednesday evening during her first meeting with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Johnson repeated his demand to get rid of the so-called backstop, which is an arrangement designed by the EU to keep the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland open as long as there is no agreement over the future relation between the EU and the UK after Brexit. Johnson welcomed Merkel's proposal to find a quick solution. Wir schaffen das, we will manage this, the British Prime Minister said in German, echoing a sentence Merkel had famously used during the refugee crisis. In Berlin, Arne Delfs, Bloomberg, Daybreak Europe.
Now, insurance against headwinds from the trade war and low inflation. That's how the Federal Reserve saw its interest rate cut last month. At the time, Chairman Jay Powell called it a mid-cycle adjustment, and minutes from the July meeting reinforced that. The FOMC saw the quarter-point reduction as part of its ongoing reassessment of the policy path.
And, of course, the focus now turns to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where central bank officials are gathering to address some of the most difficult questions facing policymakers as the US-China trade war takes its toll. Bloomberg's global economics and policy editor Kathleen Hayes has the preview.
For markets, the big focus is Fed Chair Powell's opening speech to kick off the symposium on Friday. Will he signal aggressive rate cuts are coming? Or will he telegraph a more cautious approach as the Fed waits to see how the U.S. economy holds up in the face of the ongoing trade war? The answer to this could move global markets. In Jackson Hole, I'm Kathleen Hayes, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Turning to one of our top corporate stories today, and Osram Licht has opened the door to letting AMS submit a $4.2 billion takeover bid. It ramps up pressure on Bain Capital and Carlyle to raise their joint offer for the German lighting maker. Earlier, Manus Cranney and I spoke to CFO Ingo Bank, and he told us why Osram is keen on the AMS deal.
If you look at what they provided to us, from a funding perspective for the transaction, but also if you look at the what's now been included in the cooperation agreement, I have to say this is a very sincere agreement, a very professional agreement. We had very professional and constructive discussions with them. So from that perspective, and against that backdrop, and rest assured that we looked at all stakeholders in Osram, we support it. So we think it's a very credible offer to have.
How will you get the unions on board with this, and also some sort of broad concerns that Manus was pointing to as well about AMS's debt levels?
Well, again, I think I cannot speak to what the unions have said. All I can point out to is that in the cooperation agreement signed with them, we made quite some comprehensive agreements as far as the labor force and certain company locations are concerned. We took care that the agreement is at least as good as the one that we concluded with Bain Carlyle. So from that perspective, from a management board perspective, we can say that supports the employees, and that's also why we recommended it. Because again, in Germany, you cannot just look at the offer price, which is of course important, but also look at the stakeholders and the employees, and that's what we did, and that's also what's anchored in the cooperation agreement.
Okay, so the credibility, there is no credibility gap. I think that's essentially what you're trying to communicate to us. But the essence of these deals is about synergies and extracting synergies. And if you look at private equity and AMS, are they going to be able to stick to the promised synergies, Ingo? What conversation did you have around that?
I mean, of course, with a strategic or industrial buyer, you have a different perspective because you are able to leverage synergies. So we had some insight on the synergies, although limited. We think that the cost synergies are feasible. The only question is how fast are you able to realize those. There were some revenue synergies contemplated, but we had too little insight to be able to say something from a Osram perspective. And I think for further details, you have to probably ask the management board of AMS. But overall, again, from a cost synergy perspective, I think what they put together is feasible. The question is a bit timing.
That was Osram Licht CFO Ingo Bank speaking exclusively